you more of offense or defensive guy?
You call me a casual, I'm more of offensive guy.
Offensive, okay, yeah, I'm with you there. But for this week's Crutant Corner, we have Greg Powers taking a look at some of the best defensive linemen in the state of Texas as we turn to him now.
Thanks, y'all. Welcome into another edition. I guess we're going to call it de facto the recruiting corner here on Texas football tonight. This week, we're going to be looking at the top 10 defensive line prospects in the class of 2024. And at the top, you're going to have the monster defensive end Colin Simmons, a 6'3", 225-pounder who's committed to the University of Texas. He helped lead Duncanville to the state championship last year, 22.5 sacks. Set a Duncanville record with that number. He's a monster who's all over the field, racking up tackles behind the line of scrimmage. Huge get for Steve Sarkisian and the Longhorns with Colin Simmons. And as we look down this list, you're going to start to notice a little bit of a trend. Jumbo defensive lineman with big athleticism. Number 2, strong side defensive end Dealyn Evans is committed to Texas A&M. Number 3, Nigel Smith. He has his decision coming up here in a couple of weeks. He's going to be making the decision on September 8th between schools like Oklahoma, Ohio State, Texas A&M. 6'5", 260-pounder who had 17 tackles for a loss last year. Very athletic. His dad played at SMU, played basketball at SMU, so this is a prospect. Whoever gets his commitment is going to get a big-time player. I like Nigel Smith because he's not only a guy who commands attention and picks up tackles behind the line of scrimmage, he eats up blocks and lets people make clean plays, but behind him, that's very important when you're looking at the defensive front. Moving on down the list, at number 4 is a guy who I really want to spotlight, and that's Jonah Ajanye at Conroe Oak Ridge. Ajanye is a guy who probably played at about 240 pounds last season. He's playing this season probably closer to 270 pounds. He's got a 6'10" wingspan. This is a monster. He sits at number 18 in our current rankings in the 2024 DCTF Rising Hot 100. If there's a prospect to watch in the state who could make a case to be a 5-star recruit by the end of the year that's outside of the top 10, this is the guy you need to watch. He is a physical freak, committed to Georgia, really passes the eyeball test. The number 1 rated defensive tackle in the class of 2024 is Duncanville's Alex January. He'll be joining his teammate Colin Simmons at the University of Texas, where both of them have already given their verbal pledge. His dad, Mike January, played linebacker at Texas. It's good to have a big 6'4", 325-pound monster in the middle of a state championship winning defensive front, and January is just that. And one thing to keep in mind when you're looking at this tape, 6'4" players tend to have a chance or a tendency to play high. He plays with a great pad level, really moves offensive linemen back, makes a lot of plays. He's not just a block eater. He's a guy who can actually get behind the line of scrimmage and make something happen. I always got to give my sleeper pick, and this week's sleeper is going to be Mesquite Horn defensive end Armstrong Nodum. He is a freakishly strong competitor in the weight room with a 455-pound bench press and a 635-pound squat. He also set his high school sack record last season, so he's a guy all over the place making plays, and he's given his commitment to Oklahoma State. And Cowboys fans watching this should be really fired up about his potential in Mike Gundy's defense. Thanks. Back to y'all.
All right, thank you so much, Greg Powers, for this week's Crutant Corner. And there's nothing quite like seeing, some of those, especially edge rushers. I mean, the freakish athletes they are. And right there at the top of the list, Colin Simmons. I mean, so much speed, the explosiveness. But I mean, take us through a couple of guys that stand out for you. There's a lot of really good talent on that list.
Yeah, I mean, you can start with Colin Simmons, right? Number 1 prospect by many in the state, one of the top in the country. Steve Sarkisian, that's the type of guy that Texas couldn't get for such a long time, right? Edge rusher, you think of the pillars of a team. You think of quarterback, you think of left tackle. Edge rusher is right there, right? You maybe think of safety as another one. In my opinion, with him, you have Alex January. In my opinion, if you can rack up sacks as a defensive tackle and be a game-changing interior lineman, I think that's almost just as valuable as having that edge rush on the outside that can rack up sacks. I should mention Colin Simmons had over 22 sacks last year, which again, That's unheard of almost.
Yeah.
But Alex January also was able to rack up some sacks in his own right. I love a good game-changing defensive tackle. You think of the Aaron Donalds of the world, right? You think of the Jeffrey Simmons of the world. I think if you're game-changing in that position, which is why I like Dealyn Evans over at Longview Pine Tree. He's played all over the offensive line, 58 tackles, 15 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. Again, he's going to play everywhere. He's still kind of filling out as well. So in my opinion, he's able to be versatile. He's still growing as well, which is kind of a scary thought. But in my opinion, Dealyn Evans is going to be somebody to watch as well, just because I love somebody that's more versatile.
So I think a lot of those guys we're going to be hearing a lot on Saturdays at the
Maybe
next
Sundays,
levels.
yeah.
Sundays as well.